So this is very much a death scene investigation. It's just a death scene that happened 240 some years ago.
We are standing on site of an original 1777 Fort Mercer trench. The Rhode Island Regiment was defending Fort Mercer from an attack of about 2,000 Hessian soldiers. The fort was of vital importance in 1777. Fort Mercer and Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia were charged with keeping the British supplies out of Philadelphia. So they were here to keep the supply lines from going into the city. George Washington says to Colonel Christopher Greene, the defense of the Delaware relies on you. And so they have this incredibly important job to do. The garrison is the Rhode Island Regiment. What makes this a particularly interesting moment in Revolutionary War history is the number of African American troops who participated in the battle. So we know there were roughly 500 men in the garrison. Of that 10%, roughly 50 were African American. You had a fully integrated fighting force at the Battle of Red Bank. October 22nd, 1777, the Hessians attack. You can't emphasize enough how important that moment was. Side by side, people of African descent with white soldiers defended this fort. They were fighting for freedom, and everybody had a different reason for what they were fighting for, but that moment of Greene staring down the Hessian soldiers, incredible, absolutely incredible. It's the greatest upset victory of the American Revolution. Nobody thought Colonel Christopher Greene could pull this thing off, and they did. Sadly, at the end of the day, the tremendous loss of life that the Hessians faced impacted those individuals throughout their military careers. So what we're seeing here is the remnants of the battle. We are gazing at the next day, October 23rd, 1777, when Colonel Greene ordered his men to bury the dead. What makes the project so compelling is the public participation that we incorporated into this project. So it wasn't just a straight archaeology project. We incorporated over 100 volunteers to help us move soil, work the screens, look for artifacts, wash artifacts. It's the most amazing moment as a public historian. Working with the public and getting them excited about the historical process is my goal as a public historian. To have people hold history in their hands is an absolutely transformative moment. We were looking to get to the bottom of the Fort Mercer trench, but as we progressed to the bottom, which was about 4.5 feet down, we started finding military material, and that's how we knew we hit 1777. We were finding things like musket balls and canister shot and knee buckles, all kinds of military material that we found in the park before. So on the last day of the public archaeology event, our archaeologists had been teasing us, saying that the best finds in an archaeology project happen on the last day and at the last hour. And in the afternoon, as we were pretty much happy with the project, one of our volunteers who was digging said, "I think I have a bone." And everything stopped. I'll never forget that moment. It was stunning, it was overwhelming, it was sad. I'm still processing it.
This is a really remarkable space. You can find Revolutionary War hospital burials, but not necessarily battlefield burials. So the number you could count is probably on two hands of battlefield sites throughout the United States from the Revolution where you have burials like this. We are assuming right now that these are Hessian soldiers. Based on everything we have here, the context of what we're finding and the artifacts and objects that are in place with them. It's exciting that we found these because there is no evidence, there was no documentary evidence that this was a location where human remains would be located.
We're hoping that eventually perhaps we can identify some of these individuals. These are artifacts, and for me as a public historian, obviously it's a really unusual artifact to work with. But if we can extract their stories, if we can tell these people's stories, that's going to give our visitors at the park an amazing connection to the event. It lets us put a name to a face, and that to me is a very powerful moment in public history when we can do that. Archaeology helps us better understand what happened here at Red Bank. Down the road, this parcel is going to be incorporated into the main battlefield interpretation. And so we'll be looking to change the story that we're telling the public. Now we have more opportunity to tell a more complete story of these individuals, who they were, why were they here, what was their fate, and it gives people a different nuanced understanding of the history of Red Bank.
It's one thing to read a history book and have another author or even a contemporary who you have diaries and journals and things. This is much more visceral. When you see this, when you see the objects that are associated with this, there also is a level of commemoration and memorialization and remembrance that is very important here, that the park itself is often seen as a recreational space, and people don't seem to remember that this is actually a cemetery. It may not be a marked cemetery right now, but it is a cemetery.
So when I look in the trench right now and I see our archaeology team working on the remains, it really brings home for me the violence of battle and the violence of war. Up until now, I feel like it's been very abstract for me. Yes, I know the statistics, I know how many died, I know how many were injured, but to stand there and to see it and to think about who these people were and the families that they left behind, it's made a really big impact on me, for sure. And anyone who comes through here, now my job as the public historian is to convey that, to help them understand that moment, to work with the public to understand what that moment was like. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity.